All right. So we don't trip over each other for just a pure introduction. Like, shall we do Pens, myself, Frost, and Ness? Like that order?
Sure.
Sure. All right. I'll start off. I am Pants. I have played Shadow Priest in retail for at a cutting edge level for like 3 expansions. It was Legion, BFA, and the beginning of Shadowlands. And then I started playing Classic. I've been in Welcome, which is one of the like top 10 to 15 guilds when it comes to progression. And yeah, that's kind of me. I always play Shadow Priest. I always play casters, if anything, if I ever deviate. So that's about it.
Hello, I'm Kiwi and Apple. I currently am guildless, but I used to play in Creation. I have been in a top guild back in original Red of the Lich King, but currently I'm just the moderator of the Shadow Priest Classic Discord, and I love to do spreadsheets. You may have seen some of my work around. But yeah, that's all I currently do.
I will say none of this would have happened without you, Kiwi. So thank you for all of the effort and work you put into this because you are our savior.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, Frost.
Hello, I'm Frost. I've been playing WoW for about 14 years. I've played Shadow for about half of that. I played it mostly on private servers, a lot of Cataclysm and Mists of Pandaria in particular. On Classic, I played the entirety of Cataclysm now as a Shadow main in Numen and in 9.9. And I got World vs. Ragnaros on Shadow. And yeah, that's about it.
Awesome. Nets, take us home.
Hey guys, I'm Nezcals. I've been playing Shadow Priest since originally on TBC. My most notable achievements on retail was during Worlds of Draenor, where I rated top 30, and then in Legion, when I joined Nova and we got world 10th, Killshade and Mythic. I came back to Classic, or I should say, I started Classic at the beginning of Wrath of the Lich King, and yeah, I've picked Shadow again. I love this class, and yeah, I've been maining Shadow ever since the original TPC.
Wow, kill Jaden world 10th. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Tricky fight.
My
Yeah.
heroic Lich King was world 168, I believe, back in the original day.
Damn. Okay. We got quite a few experts here. I will say, just for everybody who's watching, me and Kiwi are kind of the what's a nice way to put this? We're not as informed as Ness and Frost. So they're the
MoP
experts.
babies.
We're the ones asking the questions because they're teaching us here and hopefully teaching you. So without further ado, let's get into it. Let's just start with what's new in MoP versus Kata. So new and changed abilities for Shadow Priest. Anyone want to kick us off there?
Shadow Orbs! Oh my god. They finally made Shadow Orbs not a horrible mechanic anymore. So instead of it being a random proc, which could severely hurt yourself in the opening in Cataclysm, we now actually are. It's sort of like combo points, maybe a little bit like Rogues or Paladin's Holy Power. You can see it a bit like that. However, it is very simple. We built Shadow Orbs with Mind Blast and Shadow Word Dead, and then we spend it on in PvE on Devouring Plague. And the more Shadow Orbs we have, the more damage the Devouring Plague is going to do. We'll get into more that later. But that change just by itself makes Shadow Priest feel so much better in MoP compared to Cataclysm, at least for me.
Absolutely. Frost or Ness, anything to add?
I mean, overall, the spec coming from Cataclysm into Mists of Pandaria, I think the gameplay it's been adjusted a lot to feel way more dynamic, especially with some of the talent choices we're going to talk about later. I think it's good direction they're moving in with all the class balancing they've done as well. So I would say overall it's a better gameplay over the Cataclysm Shadow Priest.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And Frost?
I think Shadow probably got the best out of the talent revamp. I think no other class has 3 DPS talents like Shadow does. And even though you feel locked into certain choices again, at least there are choices. And most of the talents that you can pick are very fun to use.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I guess just adding on a few things that are different for those of you who might not know is that now instead of getting mana back through using Shadow or Death, which was the case in Kata, you get it back through every tick of Vampiric Touch. So especially when you're multi-dotting, you'll basically be at full mana the entire time. You can cast Palm, Renew, and Leap of Faith in Shadow form without it breaking Shadow form, which is awesome. We now have Silence as a baseline interrupt and silence, but it's on a 45-second cooldown, so it's nice as a backup, but you'll probably never be like a rotational person for who's doing kicks in raid. We have Void Shift, which is a nice kind of lay on hands type ability where it swaps your HP with your current targets. So like if your tank is really low, but you have full HP, you can swap with them and it'll change percentages. So that's also really nice. And Divine Hymn has been removed and Vampiric Embrace is now a healing CD instead of something that's passive on your character at all times. Did I miss anything?
I mean,
Well,
that's it, I guess, yeah.
notably, if you get Symbiosis from a Druid, you kind of get Divine Hymn back because you get Tranquility.
True. My guildmates have already been teasing me about that, saying, "Can't you wait to, or aren't you excited to spend 8 seconds channeling another healing spell?"
Yeah, and we still have Hymn of Hope. Like, that is still there.
Absolutely.
Which does remove you out of shadow form, so...
Yeah, and actually something interesting with that, if your healers are struggling with mana, if you time that with their healing, or I'm sorry, with their mana regeneration abilities, they'll get more mana back. So like in our guild, for example, our priests, when they're about to Mindbender or Shadow Fiend for mana back, they'll call for one of the Shadow Priests to use a hymn so that they get more mana back per tick of their Shadow Fiend. So there are fun little ways to help your guild out even more other than kind of feeling like you're losing out on your DPS by having to channel a spell. All right, cool. If that's it for what's new, we want to hop into talents and just kind of start talking about the revamped talent trees, which ones are good, which ones are bad, and all that.
Yeah, let's start with the very first, like, actual options that we have. Because all of them are essentially useless. The only question I haven't figured out yet is if any of this potentially is like either useful on trash or potentially like an add on a fight, like in anything of MoP. But
And you're
doubt it.
talking about the first row of talents, so Void
Yes,
Tendrils, Siphene, and Dominate Mind.
Yeah, I don't think we're ever going to have to use Dominant Mind in any fights, but I'm curious if like maybe a trash MoP potentially has like a buff or something, but I doubt it.
I've never seen that ability being used, but if someone finds some abuse with it, that's the only way you're gonna see a use out of it. As for Tendros and Siphene, very limited usage in raids for either of them. I think Siphene I've personally used in only one fight, but that you can even consider that suboptimal, and it's not in the first year. So generally, this talent row for raids kind of doesn't matter. For dungeons, you're probably running Tendrils.
There is some use for Siphon, depending on what strat you're doing. So if, let's say you're in Terrace of Elder Spring, so you're doing Leishi, you could use a Siphon to help fearing one of the water elementals that come out, for example. Or even rooting, but rooting I wouldn't advise because the root is going to die really fast. I would just play Siphon there just as a backup CC on one of the elementals, depending on, again, what strat you're doing. In terms of the Dominant Mind, I think the only fight that I can remember it being sort of like an ability that you can abuse in order to gain an advantage in a fight, it's in Worlds of Trainer, which is not gonna be around for a while. So in MoP, there's only one situation you could really play it that I know of, and it's in a challenge mode. Where you can CC one of the ads. I believe it's in, what was it, Scarlet Monastery, I believe. On the first boss, you can CC one of the big spirits, and then you can use that to kill the boss really fast by building stacks on it before you CC. But other than that, I don't know if there's any other use for Dominant Mind in a raiding scenario that I know of, at least. I haven't really played on private servers, so I wouldn't know yet. I haven't tested myself, but yeah, those are the two options that I think you can use the ability on, really.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think I've tried Dominate Mind a few times, and every time the mob was immune to it, so it's probably just more of a PvP thing. All right, let's move on to the second row. This one's fun. Body and Soul, Angelic Feather, and Phantasm. Any initial thoughts there?
Feather is probably one of the most fun abilities like in the game, at least for me. Like, so I also leveled on private servers, and in original MoP, so the private servers, Angelic Feather isn't as fun because now we have add player map, and just that alone for Angelic Feather, it just so much fun. Like, of course, like you don't want to use that GCD if you don't have to, but anytime you are forced to move, just having the feather is just, it's, I enjoy that a lot.
Feather is really nice because Shadow doesn't have virtually any mobility unless you're multi-dotting with From Darkness Comes Light. And at least Feather makes you so fast that you get to where you need to go quickly, so you don't lose that many globals.
Yeah, I agree. I think Feather is honestly a locked-in talent, especially for raiding. There might be a situational scenario to be made for Phantasm. I played a lot with Phantasm in PvP, especially in arenas, and I felt like Feather is still better overall, but Phantasm it gives you that immunity for a very specific scenario where you don't want to, be pushed by, like you don't want your movement speed to be, decreased in any shape or form. And I think again, it's really situational, but it can work. I think I think the one you wouldn't take unless you really care about its healing is I don't think you would ever pick Body and Soul. Like I personally have not been in a situation when I would pick that talent.
Yeah, it just seems like a worse feather, right? You could just drop a feather for somebody if they need it and life grip them. Like there's other movement tools that Body and Soul just feels a bit kind of worthless compared to.
Yep.
Cool. All right. Next talent row. So the one that actually increases our damage or changes our gameplay, at least. So we have From Darkness Comes Light, Mindbender, and Solace and Insanity.
Darkness Comes Light is something that is going to be shortened to FDCL. And I don't know if we're constantly going to say From Darkness Comes Light, but FDCL is probably more common. And then
it'll just be FDCL from now on then.
Yeah, and then we have the Mindbender, and then Solace and Insanity. That is essentially Insanity, because Solace is the healing side, and then the Insanity side, which is also what we're going to be running for the majority of fights.
So I would say, obviously, for single target, you would always pick Solace and Insanity. The damage that it does, it's way too big to ignore. There's a few, scenarios where a fight is designed in such a way where From Darkness Comes Light would be a DPS increase to get out those VTs and start mind spiking your primary target. When it comes down to the logs, I think you will always, most of the time, will pick Solace and Insanity when it comes down to parsing, especially during farm, because everything is going to be dying way quicker with the more gear you have and stuff. But if you care about progression, don't sleep on FDCL, because there's some fights where you can abuse it to the point where you can really put some really good single target damage on a primary target from getting those procs. As far as Mindbender goes, the only case that I found it to be useful was in really low gear challenge modes. That 1 minute, that 1 minute CD where you can use it on even trash, because like where insanity is not gonna do anything realistically, because you're gonna be mind searing and dotting up stuff. It's a really nice thing to have on, again, specifically on low eye level, challenge modes. I'm talking like 420 eye level, 420 to 435. I think Mindbender is actually good in that scenario. But outside of that, I don't think you will use it anywhere else.
I agree with that because we've been testing like monkey runs for leveling. And I was just going from like the constant spamming of like doing a dungeon every like minute and a half. And I was running Mindbender there. So it's a little bit different. But just having the mana regen was super nice when I'm just like running through dotting stuff. Another use case for it as well.
Yeah, and Mindbender cranks, same as Sharafin. So like, let's say you're in a scenario where you're pulling like 20 mobs, right? And you're gonna be, dotting and mind searing. Mindbender is actually gonna do more DPS there if you use it on let's say on an ad or a mob you want to really kill quickly, than just having Solace and Insanity and not use it until you go to a boss. And realistically, like challenge modes, the most important thing is, I would say, how much AoE damage you have in your comp. Like, how fast can you get to the bosses? The bosses are gonna die regardless. Like, they don't take much damage, or like much time for them, compared to the overall dungeon. But again, it's kind of dungeon specific, because there's dungeons where you could run Halo, which we're gonna talk about later. But it's kind of risky and is not gonna be good times.
Yeah, I've experienced that myself. Frost, anything to add there?
On the idea of Mindbender, it does very slightly less damage per use than Shadow Fiend, but it's still really high. Like, compared to like previous expansions, Shadow Fiend and Mindbender actually do a lot of damage per global. But still, the other two talents are usually just better in almost every case. I would say, yeah, probably in dungeons, Mindbender has some use. But I also want to say it a bit early. Shadow is not amazing at challenge modes, so this is just helping you be a little less weak, I guess.
Yeah, it's the sad truth of Shadow Priest, unfortunately.
How difficult are the challenge modes like for us as Shadow?
Not at all. We did a full world tour last night with my group. We cleared every single challenge mode gold, and we did it in 430 eye level. We went under geared.
430, really?
Yeah. Mindbender was really good on some of the dungeons. Obviously, some others where you can utilize Insanity more. Obviously, you're gonna pick that over Mindbender. But I wouldn't say there's a cookie cutter spec in PvE, PvP, or challenge modes that you can just go with and play it all the time. I think like you're leaving out a lot of damage, depending on the kind of content and you're doing, but also like the way the content is designed. So you're gonna have to be swapping your talents a lot in order to maximize your damage, to its fullest.
It's actually a really easy way also to like pick on this route, because since Insanity is the best talent, usually you should just ask yourself, you look forward into the next fight and you're like, okay, how often do I actually use the talent in the fight? And if you realize that you're just kind of not getting to mind play at all, then just don't pick it.
A fair point. It's a very fair point. All right, next row. So now we have more defensive utility here. We have Desperate Prayer, Spectral Guise, and Angelic Bulwark.
So I guess I'll take this one first, so you guys can argue with me later. I would say personally, I always pick Angelic Bulwark. I think that talent is I'm not gonna say broken in its current form, because later on in different expansions, it gets way stronger. But it's still, I feel like, one of the talents where you can just pick it, forget about it, and in a really bad case, it's gonna save your life. Like Spectral Guys is really, again, situational. There's been a few uses, like you have to test a lot. Personally, I didn't have as much of the time to completely test it in raids, but I think you can do some pretty cool stuff with it. For example, there's this one boss in Cataclysm in, I believe it's in Shadowfang Keep. You know the first boss where you get choked?
Yeah.
And yeah, you can Spectral Guys that choke after the fact and break it.
That's cool. I never knew that.
So there's cases where it's gonna, like, that talent is gonna do you can do insane stuff with it. It's just you have to try every single mechanic and boss, and some of the times RNG is on your side and you don't get targeted by those, so testing it is not as easy as you would think. But I would say for raiding specifically, Angelic Bulwark is the way to go. PvP, I tried Desperate Prayer. It didn't feel that strong, to be honest. I think Spectral Guys is way stronger in PvP than any of the other three.
Yeah, I think Spectral Guys is too insane in PvP not to be picked. It's mostly the PvP talent, unless you, as Ness said, you need to basically go and try every single mechanic that you think you can abuse, like how rogues used to vanish mechanics. You have to do the same thing. And then if it allows you to cheat something, then it's probably what you pick. Bulwark is just the safe option. I used to call it bad cauterize, which I'm not trying to insult the talent. It's still nice, but it doesn't guarantee save you like cauterize does, for example. And Desperate Prayer, it technically heals you more, but it's also a button. So probably for the majority of people, you just play Bulwark.
Yeah, my argument is essentially like, I mean, Healthstones has changed in MoP, but essentially very few people press their Healthstone. So I kind of see this as a similar thing. Like very frequently, like a DPS person, like, yeah, if you check the logs, like in your most casual-ish runs, Healthstones are just barely used. So it's the same thing, like obviously Desperate Prayer, like if you know the fights well enough, like you can just press the button because you're ready for it. But as a reactive thing where you suddenly like are like close to dead, like the Bulwark is just gonna proc for you and you don't have to do anything, and the prayer you have to press the button.
I would say the thing with Desperate Prayer, I felt like it was really strong in challenge modes, especially when you do, let's say, like you do a big pull and the tank drops and you life swap him. You can then instantly Desperate Prayer, or like there's a mechanic like incoming damage to the entire group. Everyone's gonna take damage. It's really good for that. But in a raid scenario, I think it's good, but I would rather have the extra like DR when it comes down to it with a shield, because there's gonna be points in Mists of Pandaria where you're either gonna use a defensive or an immunity, or you're gonna die. And I think Agile Bulwark, even though it's technically a worse cauterize, I think it's gonna be good enough to the point where it's gonna save your life. So that's why I'm gonna be locking that in most of the time.
I think that's a good point about DRs, is that Desperate Prayer, it can only heal you, right? So it's like if your health is 0, if you die from a mechanic, you're screwed. you can't do anything there. Desperate Prayer will at least proc, Angelic Bulwark will at least proc as your health goes down. So especially if it's something that's like too fast for you to react to, it's a much nicer safety net to have.
I also want to mention for the first year that you cannot play Angelic Bulwark on Amber Shaper. Just for people out there, because if you ever get inside the constructs, people can't actually break you out because the Bulwark will use the health of the construct, which is like 2 million.
Yeah, I have a VOD I think I can show from beta raid testing where I wasn't aware of that, and then I got picked for the vehicle, and then at 20 or 30% health, I think 30% health, I had this like 7 million absorb shield on me, and everybody's like, "What the hell? Why isn't your health going down?" As they were trying to DPS me so that I could get out of it. And then I died because we didn't get out fast enough. So that was a fun experience.
Can you check that? Somebody that's good with logs on what happened with Pants at 30% health?
He got melee.
Oh wait, do you have that fucking talent, Pants? Holy shit.
Oh,
Untalent
angelic
that
bulwark.
priest. Holy fuck! That thing was like a fucking 1 million shield.
Oh, so fucking stupid. Okay.
That was toxic. I was like, why is his health not going
Yeah, I
down
saw
past
that, and my health just like
30%?
was frozen for like a good 10 seconds. All right, let's go on to the next row. So Twist of Fate, Power Infusion, and Divine Insight.
Oh, the fun one. The
I
twist
took
of
the
fate.
last one first. I'm gonna let Frost take this one.
Yeah, Frost, go ahead.
I'm struggling to remember the last time I've seen a talent as broken as Twist of Fate. That talent is just not right. I don't know how they thought this is good design, but
It stays for a while in the game.
It's still on retail.
Oh, is it? 'Cause I'm like, I know we had it through Legion and I think BFA.
It is.
Yeah.
It's still on retail. Yep.
It's just crazy how strong this talent is, and you can cheat it almost everywhere all the time. So this is like the talent you pick almost always. You need. It's very rare that you actually have like a straight up full single target, no ability to hit an ad or something to just keep reprocking it forever. But at least in those cases, you can maybe think about the other two, because even if you can't cheat it, it's still really good. It basically Twist of Fate is so good that it makes the other two almost like an afterthought.
So I would agree fully. Get used to playing around with Twist of Fate and proccing it as much as possible. Just because it's gonna be a thing in WoD if it comes. It's gonna be a thing in Legion if it comes. As far as I remember, it's gonna be even in BFA. Like I'm pretty sure. Like it, if they removed it, maybe it was for like a patch or two, or maybe there was like a better talent option at some point on retail. But it's a thing that stays in the game, and it changes a little bit. It changes when it procs depending on the expansion you're playing, like the threshold or the percentage of the of the mob, like the health you need to hit the mob in order to proc it. But Twist of Fate is just an insane talent. It's the reason why we're viable. It's one of those things where it's so broken you can't even replicate it on a sim. Like you cannot have a sim proc Twist of Fate or like have 80% uptime on it, like you're gonna have in an actual encounter, depending on the encounter, of course. But it's just one of those things that are completely broken.
They're potentially working on the sim to simulate.
Yeah, well, as of right now, it's not a thing
Yeah,
though.
exactly. And
so-
that's, by the way, a point about like this whole like recording. As of right now, like, so we are recording this on launch day. The actual launch of the video, it depends a little bit, but it will be after the race. And currently, what we know is what we're sharing, but we're going to learn more during the whole expansion, and we will obviously in the Discord, we're going to update that as much as we can, but we cannot know things that we don't know yet. But yeah, like the Twist of Fate talent is just kind of insane on some fights specifically. But the other one is like Power Infusion. Man, that got to change.
Stacks with Bloodlust. It's the only thing that makes it like potentially usable.
And
Yeah.
it's a personal thing.
Yeah, so now you can only use Power Infusion on yourself. It stacks with Bloodlust and increases your damage done by 5%, as far as I remember. I believe it's 5. Yep. The thing about Power Infusion, I think it's all around. It's an okay talent. This row, realistically, should not be like this, just because of the third option as well. I feel like one of those talents should have been baseline, because most of the time you will not play without Twist of Fate. So you will, like, there's only a couple of cases in my mind where you would pick Divine Insight, which is not even in the first phase of MoP. Power Infusion is a really good talent if, well, there's a few things to consider. Kill time, or like kill duration, gear, and I wouldn't, in terms of like rating for progression, there's not really many fights you would ever want to pick it for, just because Twist of Fate is so strong.
Yeah, I feel like PI just doesn't almost doesn't exist in a prog circumstance because the fights are going to be longer. You're not going to use it at the appropriate time. You might not have it up from when you want to as you're like starting to figure out the fight. I think it depends on the level of player you are and how much time you're investing into your prog. But it just feels like a very underwhelming talent where Twist of Faith, you're always going to get value out of it. And if you play well, you're going to get a ton of value out of it. Like that's going to be the biggest skill differentiator between good and bad Shadow Priests. I feel like it's going to be Twist of Fate uptime on fights where you can really take advantage of it.
Yep. In original MoP beta, there was Power Infusion was not an option. In original MoP beta, you had that's why the talents don't make sense to me in that row. In original MoP, you had the option to pick Dark Archangel instead of Power Infusion. And again, it did like 20% damage. It was a 20% damage increase. I forget the duration, but it was the single target talent. I don't know how they came to Power Infusion being an option and not something you would have baseline, or not at all. It just, I don't know. It's not something you would really ever pick for the most part.
And equally true for Divine Insight. You will never pick that ever in PvP.
Yeah. There's only one boss in my mind so far that I've thought of that it makes sense, which is way down the line of the expansion. But other than that, it's just it's such a big waste. This talent should have been passive. It should have been baseline cooked into the spec. You will never really not pick Twist of Fate to pick Divine Insight.
Honestly, Divine Insight is a good talent. The only problem is that it has to compete with Twist of Fate. And usually all the encounters that would allow you to use Divine Insight, which is multi-dot fights, usually on those you can cheat Twist of Fate, which is it basically just makes it unusable.
Yeah.
At least it gets used in PvP, but we're not here to discuss PvP.
Yeah, in PvP it's a completely different story. Divine Insight is insane in PvP.
Absolutely. All right, final row now. Cascade, Divine Star, and Halo.
Frost, you go.
So these talents are like very flashy. They're mostly visual, honestly. Gameplay wise, unless it's exactly a massive AoE pack where Halo just one-shots the whole thing, they don't actually have much impact to them. But they are still, I would say, a nice addition. Halo is generally the best talent if you can stand at the appropriate range, which actually is very important. This part, which I'm gonna stress. How Halo works is you want to be somewhere between 25 and 30 yards. Best case is 28 exactly. You're gonna need some form of an add-on or a weak aura to tell you how far away you are from your targets to play with it optimally. If you can't get about like more than 20, I would say, further away from your target, and you're like, let's say, stacked under the boss, just don't pick Halo at all, because it does absolutely no damage in melee range. But yeah, you basically almost always want to pick Halo on AoE and on single target if you can stand with your at the range that Halo requires you to stand on. Cascade is usually used when you can meet its criteria, which is mobs that are really spread far apart. For like, you need to be exactly in a position where Halo doesn't hit everything at the appropriate yards, while Cascade would kind of. So you need, for example, Wing of Elegon. The pillars spawn in like a circle around the boss, and you cannot really stand in the middle and hit all of them. So because they spawn from the middle and go out. So that's a situation that fits Cascade way more. And Divine Star is honestly mostly used just for healing when the other two don't make sense. Like if you're permanently stacked under the boss, you can never move out. It's like the only case you can make for Divine Star, but you're not really using it for damage.
Is Divine Star even a single target DPS increase on cooldown?
No, as far as I know, it's not. Well, you would if you would never use it, then maybe not. I believe I forget the number, but I believe it's like a really small DPS increase, if any. I forget what the sim said, because
I think-
I checked it back like many versions before the current one we have.
I think it entirely depends on how high your mastery is, basically.
Yeah.
But even if it is a gain, it's a very tiny gain to the point where you would literally just save it as your best ability to move with, because it is a very good global to move with.
Yeah, that's a fair point, because our only movement ability, if you're not taking FDCL, is Shadow Word Pain and Shadow Fiend, technically, but that's once every 3 minutes.
Yep.
I guess DP too, but that's not something you want to cast on the move. So that's a very good point.
But yeah, the TLDR for this row is pick Halo, and if the fight does not suit Halo, you have to consider how Cascade works. And if neither of them work, you can pick Star, but it basically doesn't matter at that point. Like, none of them have high impact if you can't meet Halo's requirements.
Yeah, so I would say the level 90 row, it's the most frustrating one out of all of them to pick out, a talent and play with it. There's a lot of situations, especially during testing, that I found, especially in Heart of Fear, where Halo is just not gonna be worth it just because of the huge hitbox of a boss. However, Cascade is not gonna be optimal either, and then you have to go in a route where, okay, which one is gonna do more damage than the other, depending on how I'm positioned, without screwing over my raid teammates and risking dying myself. And then even in that scenario, again, depending on which one you pick, it's not gonna be a massive difference, but it's still gonna be mostly, there's still a clear option that you should go for. The TLDR is pick a talent, test it, try it yourself, but there's always going to be a winner, even if you cannot get the optimal damage from Halo. But for the most part, you want to run Halo. But there's, again, don't sleep on Cascade. There's a lot of bosses where Cascade is going to do more damage than Halo.
That's good to know. I haven't used Cascade much, but I definitely did kill myself a few times on Garelon trying to get a good Halo, and then I just walk right under the boss and get smashed.
Yeah, that's exactly one of those bosses where Halo is gonna do nothing if you stand in the center with a raid and risk losing more damage moving out just because of the huge hitbox of the boss in order to get in optimal range to Halo, and the boss is moving at the same time as well. So, for me, on that specific boss, I've tried every single one of the talents, and I found Cascade to be the best option. Just because, again, it's gonna hit all the legs, and at least you can do some damage to one of the far legs when it spawns, and potentially proc Twist of Fate. So, Halo, I just wouldn't play Halo on that specific boss, for example.
What about, do you think Halo has benefit if you time it right after a crush? Because, and I mean, maybe this is getting too into the weeds and we could cut this out if we want to, but my thought was you could also use it to proc Twist of Fate just by healing your raid. Is that a thought there?
I think there's a lot of RNG that's involved in that situation specifically. You could do it, yes, but again, it depends how many, for example, Discipline Priests you're running, or Holy Priests, or if a different healer is going to use a raid CD at the same time, right before the crash. I wouldn't use it for healing specifically to try and proc Twist of Fate. There's better options for that. I would just use it for DPS optimally, because I don't think it's worth the GCD to proc Twist of Fate. Just because it has travel time, and with healing you cannot. I feel like there's too many RNG elements in it.
All right, that's fair. All right, let's move on to Glyphs. So I feel like there's 3, maybe 4 we'll consider, but the main 3 are kind of set in stone.
Kind of depend. Like there is a single fight that I at least know of where we just take 0 spell damage. So that's, I guess, the only one. But I'm blanking the name now. But I know Frost and Ness will
The
know.
first one in Heart of Fear. I think
Yeah,
all of
it's-
that damage is physical.
Yeah, it's Imperial
Yeah.
Vizier.
So there you potentially don't use the Glyph of Inner Sanctum, but for the most part we're running the Inner Sanctum, Fade, and Vampiric Embrace. You never remove Glyph of Fade, it is just insane. And like even Vampiric Embrace is like just crazy good. There are some arguments I keep hearing, but I don't know entirely if it is really a good argument. Just that you want more healing, like more time of the Vampiric Embrace healing. However, I don't think that's ever a case where there is enough, like, low enough damage that a longer Vampiric Embrace makes sense. Because the glyph just improves the damage, and usually you would press Vampiric Embrace or be asked to press it when there is a lot of raid damage going out. Also, Fade is off the GCD now, so you can just get 10% reduced damage at any moment you like.
Yeah, having a mini DR is incredibly useful there. Frost Ness, anything to add?
I would mention that compared to previous expansions, glyphs don't really give damage anymore. And also, if you've heard rumors of the minor Glyph of the Shah giving damage by removing the global on Shadowfiend, that was fixed in the blue post thing for Classic, so you cannot do that anymore.
Yeah, that was a sad thing.
I think. Sorry, go on.
It was fixed like in what, Legion or like later, like whenever Blizzard figured out like, oh yeah, this probably shouldn't work like this. But yeah, they fixed it, which I mean it makes sense because like yeah, it was I would assume just a bug, like nothing more. But
From what I've read, it's because the Shot-touched gem weapons had a hidden effect to give you the Shadowfiend Shah visual. And then when they made the glyph in 5.4, they probably just used the same line of code that the weapon had. That's probably how this happened.
oh, that's even more funny.
I mean, except for PvP, I don't see a reason why they removed it. Honestly, it was just a quality of life change. Being able to press, Shadowfiend without, a war in the world and have it go out. It's not really an insane DPS increase or anything like that. It just felt good to play with. I don't know if it was an issue in PvP. There I could see why they would remove it. But outside of that, I think the glyphs are pretty straightforward. Like you guys said, Fade, Inner Sanctum, VE, and Inner Fire. Like again, Inner Sanctum versus Inner Fire, depending on the fight. It's pretty much the way to go. Except if again, I haven't really found any bosses in the first phase where you would run something else. That could be a thing later down the line. I mean, there's one boss, I guess, in MSV where you would run the Must Dispel Glyph. But outside of that, I think it's the glyphs are pretty set on and locked in.
Yeah, that's a good point. So in Spirit Kings, one of the bosses has a shield that can only be removed by a glyphed Mass Dispel or by the warrior Shattering Throw, I believe. So you do need a priest who has a glyphed Mass Dispel because it makes it dispel things that normally aren't dispellable, which is kind of weird. It's kind of like a very awkward way to like force somebody to use a glyph, but I mean, I guess it works. So that's the only fight that I'm aware of, at least in tier 14, where you want to use that.
And final glyph I would mention is Mind Flay. I mean, you can play with it if you like it, but the problem is that it kind of conflicts with other movement speed effects like Feather. Doesn't let you use them, and it's a bit awkward. I can see uses for it, but compared to the other utility ones, I personally wouldn't use it.
Yeah, I wouldn't use it either.
Yeah.
I was really excited for it when I first saw it And then after playing with it, you realize how bad it is because cancel aura macros don't work with it. You can't get any other speed buff, so you can't grab a feather. If you run over a feather when you have the Glyph of Mind Flay buff on you, you get nothing. You don't get the feather. I think I don't think you can use rocket boots while you have it. Maybe correct me if I'm wrong there. It just kind of like
Oh,
interferes with every movement speed buff that you would otherwise want while you have it. You know.
there's another glyph. I wouldn't say you ever really pick it, but there could be maybe depends on the math. Some use for it on some fight, perhaps in the future. Again, it's kind of you could say a trap glyph, maybe, but the glyph of reflective shield could be somewhat, let's say, useful on some fight, depending on the interaction, perhaps. I don't know if, let's say, a healer priest is running it, and I don't know if the shield you get from the disc priest, let's say, is gonna give you the benefit of the glyph, or if you have to be running it yourself. But maybe it's something to consider.
Yeah, that's interesting. If you have a lot of downtime and you can either shield, I guess why would you shield people if you? Yeah, so it would really only be for shields on yourself because you'd have a disc priest who's shielding people. I'm trying to think if there would ever be a situation where the shadow priest would be shielding people.
I didn't really try it. I saw it. I tried it in PvP and it was nice, but like, yeah, I don't know in terms of like PvE and raiding. Like, maybe there could be some use for it. That's assuming you don't lose a JCD on of your actual rotation on the boss. Like, you wouldn't really shield yourself to do damage with it. But maybe if downtime was a thing a lot on a fight, it could be a thing.
Yeah, that's a cool thought. There's probably some way to play around that, but again, similar to what we were just talking about, spectral guys, it's something that you just would need to test a lot in just different circumstances to see if it makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about gameplay because Shadow. It's funny. We've had a few people in the Shadow Priest Discord dooming because Shadow Priest is not very high on that single target sim sheet that's been floating around. And Shadow is just not a single target class. And I some people get really hung up on these sim sheets because while, yes, on a fight that's pure single target, Shadow's not going to perform that well. Very few fights are actually just pure single target. So let's talk about the strengths and weaknesses of Shadow just in raid encounters as a whole.
I guess I should take this one since I tested along with Pan's Shadow in actual beta raiding completely. I would say Shadow is 100% viable in raiding Mythic and even pushing for world rankings depending on the guild you're playing for. Like, if you care about, let's say, if you're playing in a guild and your goal is to be top 20, top 10, top 5, you can 100% bring a Shadow Priest and he's gonna perform really, really, really well. That being said, I think people need to stop looking, especially in MoP, at single target sims and losing their minds. And the reason for that is because MoP raiding is way more complex. The sim, as of right now, does not simulate an actual raid encounter. It just simulates a full patchwork single target encounter where Twist of Fate is only gonna proc when the boss is below 35% health. In an actual raid environment, there's way more, let's say, avenues where you can proc Twist of Fate. There's healing, there's ads, there's a bunch of other stuff you can do.
There's gonna be a fight where we can get like about 80% uptime on Twist of Fate.
More.
Yeah,
There's
more
a fight where you can get 90% uptime of Twist of Fate.
right, 90. So
There's many fights where Twist of Fate is not only gonna proc sub 35%. And that talent is so insane, like it cannot be overstated. Like, it's a really, really, really good talent.
To that point, something that I actually forgot to mention when we were talking about new things was Shadow or Death also generates an orb. You can only use Shadow or Death on enemies that are below 20% HP, and you can use it twice back to back. And the first cast generates an orb and the second doesn't. But pairing that Twist of Fate uptime that you can get from killing ads, also with the ability to generate an extra orb, means that any fight that has continuous ads is like the perfect fight for Shadow Priest. Like if you're a Shadow Priest, you can easily top that fight in your raid, whether you're in a World First Guild or a World 100th. Like I feel like that doesn't matter. Like those fights are just so good for Shadow, and especially with the recent balancing we've had, that makes Shadow even more competitive. Like any fight with ads is just incredible.
Yeah, it's a really well balanced spec with not too much. Are we allowed to curse? I have to say it,
Yeah.
with not too much bullshit, like some insane snapshot stuff. Certain classes having Cataclysm or anything like that. The class is very well designed, very well balanced. You don't have to worry at all about a raid spot. If anyone tells you you're playing a Shadow Priest and you're not getting a raid spot just because you're playing a Shadow Priest, is just not the way. Like they don't know what they're talking about. Really, realistically, like the spec is 100% viable.
It's also a lot of fun. Just literally like playing a Shadow. Like I mean, I haven't raided. I didn't manage to get any raid testing successfully underway, but just doing a dungeon or just even a target dummy, like just playing as Shadow, like there is just so much fun, like with all the little things, but just even just the core, like mechanical aspect of Shadow, like it just feels fun. And yeah, it's a massive improvement. And of course, like the weakness of the single target, yes, that exists, but as Pans and like Nav both said, like there's essentially basically very few fights where there would be pure single target.
Yeah, and mind you, the main issue with single target is primarily only exists in phase 1. Like in phase 2, or sorry, rather in the Throne of Thunder phase and the Siege of Orgrimmar phase, our single target is gonna get way better. Just for many different reasons. There's a lot of factors that we're gonna talk about later down the line, but our single target will improve with the better gear we get because we scale insanely well throughout the entire expansion.
Yeah, it's like as always, like currently in pre-patch, like with the gear that we have right now, that's essentially what we're going to get to. Like I don't even know the exact percentages in Siege like this, but yeah, Dragon Soul base right now is quite insane. I think we're like at 40% still haste, if not more, like just baseline, which we're going to get down to a lot less.
Yeah, stats in MoP. I want to say it's the expansion that has the largest gap between where you start and where you finish in terms of item level. Just in terms of like the difference in like what you start at 463 with blues, you end at like I don't know what, like 570 or something. And then we have the cloak, right? I think that's like item level 600 or something. So the amount of gear, the amount of raw stats you're gonna have at the end is gonna be insane. We can save that for when we start talking about like tier 15, tier 16 in a little bit. But yeah, the expansion as a whole is going to scale for classes that scale well, which is Shadow Priest is always typically one of them. It's going to be very good for us later down the line.
Yep.
The phase 1 bis compared to the phase 3 bis, I picked a random ring, like just to see the stats. It's going to double. The stats are going to double, which was just like, okay, that's crazy.
And I don't know if I don't know if you're looking at Warhead or just the sim, but basically also on top of that, you're gonna be having, I believe it's in Throne of Thunder is Thunderforged, and in Siege of Orgrimmar it was Warforged, if I remember correctly. So you get procs on those items where you're gonna have even more stats. Depending on, again, RNG and other factors, but yeah, like we scale really well.
Yeah, I wanted to add to the Thunderforge thing. So at the end of the game, you're going from a standard heroic item is 566. If you get it Thunder Forged, I think it goes to 572 because it's +6, and then you can upgrade it 4 times because it's the last patch. So I think you're getting at like 588 compared to the 489 that you start with in tier 14. It is definitely a 100 level gap. By the end of the last year, the spec is GCD capped just from stats alone if you go full haste, which we most likely are. And then the gameplay is pretty fun. As for strengths and weaknesses, because I guess we didn't really specifically mention where we're good at and where we're not. As we explained, single target it's not great, but doesn't always hold true. There's fights where it's almost entirely single target, but as long as you throw a few adds in here and there at some points, you get an orb here and there, you get a Twist of Fate proc here and there, and suddenly the class is alive even single target. And it's always been good at multi-dotting, although I will stress multi-dotting specifically, ideally you want the targets to be spread out. Because if they are stacked, it becomes like cleave, and you don't really win cleave by just multi-dotting. But yeah, spread cleave is what you want. And then, really, I think the weakest part is AoE. I don't think Mindseer is that strong, but at least it scales well.
Sustained AoE, right? Like sustained cleave.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Generally, the best case for you is actually if the mobs die in 3-4 seconds, because you want Halo to like more or less one-shot them. Any longer than that, you kind of fall behind other people's AoE cooldowns.
Yeah, I noticed that. I noticed that especially in like pre-raid MSV, that any sustained AoE, like you start out on the top because Halo hits really hard, but then Mindseer is just kind of a wet noodle. So then you just gradually get lower the longer the pull goes on. But towards like Heart of Fear and Toas, I feel like Mindseer is actually doing pretty well on its own. At least relative to what it was in MSV. It's like once you actually start getting some gear, it's not great, but it's also not bad either.
Yeah. Basically, what happens, right, is you hit the mobs with Halo, you're top. Then a few seconds later, you're mind-searing versus stuff like Bladestorm Bloodbath or Hunters having full focus and all. And then you start falling behind. And then you're probably like equal to the other classes AoE, but their cooldowns or on AoE are just better than Shadow. So overall, you're behind because you're not gonna catch up the AoE you've fallen behind at the start, unless the mobs insta died from Halo.
Yeah, I think at least in phase 1, I haven't really found any fights except for one where you would. I personally casted Mindseer more than one time. The only fight I honestly pressed Mindseer was in Heart of Fear, the bomb boss. I forget what it's called, but yeah, like Mindseer is really not that great in phase 1. I don't know how it's gonna be in phase 2, but I know it's really decent. Not like insane, but it's quite good in phase 3 for sure. Like in Siege of Ogre, it's gonna, like, just because of the amount of haste we're gonna have, it's gonna be a decent ability on top of everything else. Like we're not gonna be falling that much far behind compared to how much we're falling behind now in sustained AoE.
The good part about it is that it scales with every single secondary you got. So
Yeah,
you just need stats.
You need stats, exactly.
Yeah, that's a good point. And maybe this is a good time to jump into tier sets. So we can talk about tier 14 first, since that's what we have first. It's a pretty underwhelming tier set, but then after that we can talk about tier 15, which is pretty awesome. So I guess, does anyone want to? I don't have it up right now. I think the 2-piece is 10% crit on Shadow Word Pain, and the 4-piece adds 3 seconds to Shadow Word Pain and Vampiric Touch. Am I correct in that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what they are. It changes dot breakpoints a bit, but it effectively just gives the dot breakpoints of Shadow Word Pain. It just gives them 2 Vampiric Touch because it equals the ticks of Pain at that point. Pain, you have to look up a sheet with breakpoints. also to touch on breakpoints, you should not live your life by breakpoints. They are a gain, but they're not making or breaking your entire spec. So just be mindful where they are, and if they're close, you can like get them, but don't like go crazy about them. They're not like that impactful.
Which is something that has been true for almost the entirety of like breakpoints existing in Shadow.
Yeah, as for tier 14, two-piece is okay. Obviously, it has some benefit because it works with apparitions as well, not just with pain. The 4-piece is just overall nice, not because it gives you like you probably don't realize it until you play the spec. It allows you to use Insanity a lot better because the timings are a bit more comfortable to play with. Like you will feel the 4-piece more in actual gameplay than you probably feel about it by just reading what it does.
Yeah, I would say compared to Throne Thunder and Siege of Orgrimmar, tier 14 is not that exciting. However, the 10% on pain and helping with the crit chances of proccing more apparitions, it's a sweet 2-set. It's not anything game breaking, but it's really, really, really nice. I think it's gonna be a decent DPS increase. And then in terms of like the 4-set, again, I think it kind of makes the gameplay just feel way better. It's not really like, again, game breaking or anything, but it's definitely gonna be a decent DPS increase.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I didn't actually get to play with it because I think the raid testing that we did when we used tier sets, after they added them to the vendors, I was away. And so I didn't make that raid testing, which I'm a little sad about. But from my my friend who was playing Shadow in our guild, he said that using the 4-piece felt awesome. Like that extra 3 seconds really does make Mind Flay Insanity just feel like you're not worried about refreshing your dots. And I guess maybe that's something that we kind of didn't really talk about. Is like the dot window for like refreshing dots before going into a Mind Flay Insanity. Maybe we could talk about that. You guys want to talk about that now?
Oh, we started the tier. Let's finish this.
Okay, that's fair. But yeah, so it makes refreshing not as much of an issue as it otherwise would have been.
So I think as far as tier 14 2 and 4 set, I think it's pretty straightforward. There's not much to talk about other than it's a decent DPS increase. You should definitely try to get it as fast as possible. It's going to increase your damage overall and make multi-dot fights feel better. It's going to make your single target feel better. It's just a very good all-around set, coming from, Dragon Soul. It's a fine set.
I'm actually blanking, but like I'm pretty sure we're not going to even get Looking for a Raid, like as original Looking for a Raid. So we're probably going to get the same dungeon farming for Looking for a Raid.
Yeah, that's already blue posted. We're not getting LFR at all, and all the LFR loot will be in dungeons.
Yeah, we're getting Celestial Dungeons, and so 2 weeks after MSV releases, you can then buy LFR gear from Celestial Dungeons. And then I think it'll be 2 weeks after every raid releases, essentially, is when the LFR, at least in tier 14, it will be when that LFR gear can be acquired from dungeons.
Also, I wanted to say about the 4-piece, like last thing, I think if anyone played Shadow and Wrath, it's probably comparable to the tier 9 2-piece, feeling wise.
Yeah. So tier Trial of the Crowd Crusader, basically. That I believe was it the 4-set? I believe it was.
I think it was the 4-set because I think the 2-set was like 5%.
No. I think it was the 2-piece because the 4-piece is the crit on Flay, right?
Oh, that was the crit on Flay?
I think it was.
I forget. It's been so long. I forget what it was.
I think the 2-piece is 6 seconds on touch. Yeah, this is actually the only tier I played Shadow on because I needed a third tune for split.
Yep, 6 seconds.
We could go more into the mining sanity stuff now, like the window and stuff.
Like the tier 15, like that's the best set name ever. Just to letting that out.
Wait, what is the name?
Regalia of the Exorcist.
Yeah, of the Exorcist, man. Who made that? Like, I want to like I don't know what, but like that just feels like, yeah, we're definitely Shadow Priest. Like that's an amazing name. Besides that, yeah, obviously that will take a while, but we're going to eventually get there.
You could argue it sounds paladin-y, but also priesty, I
True.
guess.
Yeah. It depends what movie you watched, I guess.
But anyway, let's just do the tier quick, I guess. Tier 15 two-piece is amazing. Arguably the strongest tier set you get all expansion. The reason why it's so good is because of the trinket from Lei Shen. They basically work really well together, because once the trinket procs and you re-dot, you basically become a turret of apparitions, which keep extending your dots a lot. So effectively, you end up mind flaying or mind searing or whatever so much more because your dots are lasting like upwards of 40 seconds, which is amazing to play, especially if they fix. I don't know if they have still. I think they still haven't fixed the visual animations of apparitions. Hopefully they do.
Yeah, they haven't, and every day I wake up and I'm hoping it's fixed. Like they haven't fixed it yet.
Yeah. But when they do fix it, they have to fix it for this moment because you will love seeing the amount of apparitions on your screen when you have UVLS in two-piece.
What's the issue with the apparitions?
So
The visual is bugged.
The visual is bugged. The damage works. There's nothing bugged with the damage. It's just the animation is not scripted.
Yeah, so you're supposed to spawn ghosts and then they fly towards your target, but right now you're spawning the ghosts around you, but they're not traveling towards the target, and they're kind of like faded out. They're not like as visual. Like if you YouTube it, you'll understand. It's kind of hard to explain, but it's a night and day difference.
It's supposed to spawn next to you and start floating towards your target, but right now it just spawns next to you and just sits there, and then it fizzles out after like 5 seconds. It has no impact on damage though, because the damage still happens irrelevant of the animation. So
yeah,
compared to Kata, right? It's not like Kata. The damage actually happens. There's no bug damage wise. It's just the visual.
Yeah.
And the Shadow Apes also, like, they will hit targets that are in the air, right?
Yeah, so operations is a projectile now. It's not like in Kata where you would spawn your operation and then it had to walk towards the target. And sometimes if the target, let's say Sinistra, was out of bounds, they wouldn't hit. Now they just fly towards the target and they always gonna hit. So you don't have to worry about your operations hitting anymore or losing out on damage.
Actually, on the topic of apparitions, I should mention you don't have to wiggle anymore. Because if you read what the apparitions do, they only spawn from pain crits and not from you moving anymore during the tick. So there's no need to wiggle anymore if you didn't like it in Kara.
That's good.
I think very few people did wiggle. You might be one of the few that I know that potentially did it, Frost. But
I mean, if you weren't wiggling, you're losing so much damage, especially in DS. Holy fuck! In DS, you're losing so much because every wiggle you do is a potential 3-orb. So.
I mean, it was a potential in the sim, right? To do like the wiggle. Oh god, I'm so happy to not need to wiggle anymore.
Yep.
Because I personally, like, I was trying to wiggle, and so freaking often I wasn't standing still. So like when I started casting something, like it just screwed up my cast.
And also the 4-piece is also really sweet because your Vampiric Touch has a 10% chance to also, each time it takes, to spawn an operation. And Mastery, I believe... And I believe it works with Mastery as well. So yeah, it amplifies the two set. So our set bonus in Throne of Thunder is insane. Like it's really, really good, especially when you pair it with the Lei Shen trinket, which is going to be, at least as we know right now, could be changed with all the balancing they're doing. It's 100% crit chance when it procs. I believe it was, what was it, 4 or 5 seconds? What was it?
It's
4 seconds. Yeah. So it's an insane raid set because primarily, again, of the trinket. And at that point, I think in tier 15, Shadow is going to be a really, really strong class. Not so much in prog, I guess, because like in prog we're going to be about the same as we are in MSV. But during farm and going into Siege of Orgrimmar prog, we're going to be really, really strong.
Yeah, I think the 2-piece is completely 100% not negotiable, mandatory.
Yeah.
The 4-piece works really well with the 2-piece and the whole combo. But you have to also compare it to like triple heroic Thunder Force items. So there is a world where we don't play the 4-piece, I think, but it's also unlikely that you get 3 Thunder Force pieces, right? So it's definitely not about
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. I think you're gonna be like, I think the beast lists are gonna be basically using the 4-piece. There could be a case made where you get really lucky with Thunderforce, and then you would have to resim your character, because the chances of you getting, like Frost said, like 3 Thunderforce pieces, let's say, I don't know, just random pieces, like let's say gloves, legs, and I don't know, whatever, shoulders, or whatever the item could be. It's just unlikely. I think the 4-piece is just really good with the 2-piece when it's paired with a 2-piece. But yeah, like in an insane rate set.
Yeah, and the tier 16 set is again slightly back to underwhelming. The 2-piece, at least with the old Fury, which is honestly all we have, it was Fury crafted back in the day that if you just keep your crit and mastery equal, that's how you get the most value out of it. It just makes it increases the crit damage on your mastery duplications, basically. You don't have to think about the 2-piece, it just does its thing on its own. And the 4-piece is basically after every Devouring Plague, you increase the damage of your next blast death. I don't know if it was Spike, probably Spike as well.
Yeah, it is.
By 60%. Again, not the biggest of deals, although your filler spells at that point are hitting for the millions with that 4-piece, so that is at least nice.
I would say our single target really goes up in Siege of Orgrimmar just because of the 4-piece.
Do you think there's a world where you keep tier 15 on just because the tier 16 set is so bad? Or do you think just the item level gain is going to make it worth it?
I don't think tier 16 is actually bad. I think it's going to be really good, especially for farm in Siege of Orgrimmar. The stats are going to make such a big difference. I think you're going to enjoy progressing Siege of Orgrimmar with the Thunderforged, with the what's it called, the raid with the Thunder.
Throne of Thunder.
Yeah, with the Throne of Thunder set. Sorry, apologies, spaced out. But I think eventually you will swap to the tier 16, and the bosses are going to be dying so fast that you're just going to be enjoying yourself doing those, hitting for millions of, with Death and Mind Blast.
That's fair. That's fair.
And this is the one raid where I think you might. I would have to test, but I think when you get into the late stages of Siege of Orgrimmar, and I don't know if we're going to get WOD or Legion afterwards, but I don't know what's going to happen. But when you get to the late stages of Siege of Orgrimmar, I think it's where DI picks up as a talent option. I'm not saying you're going to be picking it every time, but the 4 set with DI and just generating extra orbs through mastery is going to be increasing your single target a lot.
That's interesting. I never would have thought that by looking at that set.
Because as far as, I don't have the set in front of me, but as far as I remember, each Devouring Plague you spend, right, it increases the damage of your Mind Blast and Death. We don't talk about Spike. You don't really care about that. So
Yeah.
with the extra Mastery and Haste, you're going to be getting more procs on Divine Insight, right? And you're going to be generating more orbs, and those orbs are going to be funneling extra damage into your Mind Blast and Death. So it could be an angle if the fight is really, really short, where you don't get as much of an uptime for Twist of Fate to be worth more.
Yeah, and ironically, those few pure single target fights where you can't cheat Twist of Fate, the more we get into the phase and the shorter the kill time gets, the more value the other 2 talents get. And Twist of Fate might actually start falling out of flavor for those fights. You might actually start looking into PI and EI.
That's why I don't think tier 16 is a bad set, and eventually you're going to play it. anyways, because like you're gonna have so much extra stats and gear, like jumping from Throne of Thunder to Siege of Orgrimmar stats, that DI picks up in value a lot on fully single target specs like Frost set, where you cannot proc Twist of Fate. Like if we're talking about, let's say, Garrosh or some other fight where there's ads, yeah, obviously Twist of Fate is still gonna be better there. But there's a few, like, I mean, I would say there's more than a few single target fights in Siege of Orgrimmar where DI could be an option.
That's kind of cool. I wouldn't have expected that. Yeah, just by looking at the set, I thought it was just initially very weak.
What about the Vision of Lei Shen? I know we mentioned it, but like, so are we number one prio for that?
Sorry, say again. I didn't hear you that well.
No, it's fine. Like, so essentially the Vision of Lei Shen, are we going to actually use that in tier 16 as well? Is it just game base or?
You will use it for progression, but eventually the tier 16 trinkets are so insane that you're gonna be changing off of it at some point. It depends on how many splits your guild run, but I would say at some point within the first 3 weeks, assuming you clear the raid in the first week of the content.
Yeah, because the Lei Shen trinket also like just works insanely well with the tier 15 set bonuses, which you swap out of as well, right? So then the Lei Shen trinket also.
Oh, if
technically-
you swap tier 15, you just delete UVLS, I think. You lose so much value on that trinket.
that
yeah,
trinket
like-
looks so good.
You
Looks
wouldn't
so
play
good.
the trinket without the tier 15 2 set.
Okay.
But yeah, I think honestly tier 16 might have a lot of innovation in terms of like which set we play and which trinket, to be honest. Like, yes, it's most likely we play tier 16 with siege trinkets, but I think some stuff might happen there. Like someone might fight something.
Could be.
Yeah. Also, like something like it's kind of late now, but we didn't really mention it. But mastery is also changing in MoP, and we've mentioned the mastery, like the effect, quite often. But yeah, mastery is no longer linked to. Oh man, I'm even blanking the horrible spell name now for it that we would increase or dots damage.
Empowered Shadows.
Empowered Shadows. It's gone. Like we don't have it anymore. So yeah, now mastery is just essentially like crit. It just duplicates pretty much almost everything, I believe. Besides
Periodic.
mind
Everything
blades.
periodic.
Yeah, so like essentially like almost everything that we do.
It's basically your 2 dots, Devouring Plagues dot part, not the instant part though. Mind Flay and Mind Seer.
Right, and that's also why DI becomes good, because we were talking about that, because as your mastery increases and as your haste increases, your dots are ticking faster, and they have an increased chance to double proc. So if your dots double proc, you know, DI, it's like what, it's 5 or 10% per chance per Shadow Word Pain tick. So you're just getting more ticks faster. So yeah, I see that. That seems like a lot of fun.
It's definitely gonna be a refreshment from because the thing is in tier 15, so Throne of Thunder, technically, yeah, our set bonus is gonna be really strong paired with the Lei Shen trinket. However, there's still some things up in the air in terms of actual fun, like how fun it's gonna be to play with it, just because we don't know what they're planning on doing with the RPPM trinkets. If they're planning on fixing the way it works, it's gonna be way more RNG when that trinket procs. So it could be you get really unlucky and you don't get the stars to align in order to make that set really feel insane. It's still gonna be really strong. It's just if the trinket doesn't proc on pull, it's let's just say no one knows when it's gonna proc.
I can already see that some people are gonna get like really tired of it and just swap to like not playing UVLS, and then you play like, I don't know, Wushele Breath probably.
I think UVLS you will play 100% in tier 15, but the moment Siege of Orgrimmar comes out, people will swap away from it if they fix the how the RPPM system works, just because it's just going to be frustration of not getting a proc when you want it. And then, yeah, like the tier 16 is just gameplay wise, I think, especially in farm, it's going to be way more fun just when you're melting a boss and you're using those huge deaths and mind blasts and you keep generating orbs. If you play DI all the time, and it's just going to be, yeah, you're like a cannon, like sending out bolts.
It's also something like that we kind of mentioned, but essentially we're super happy that Blizzard is actually, well, I'm personally happy about it, that Blizzard is making changes, and a lot more than in Cataclysm, but essentially they didn't do anything in Cataclysm. But yeah, just having special shout out to Zyrene, who's in our Discord and actually listens to us, to just make Shadow a bit more, I would say competitive is maybe the right word, but those changes are also in the blue post. They did mention that they are going to revert / looking at reverting some of the changes like later on, because potentially like the 18% damage on Shadowed Pain might be a bit too much like later. So we have to be aware of that, but we also are thankful like that Blizzard did stuff.
Yeah, I mean, if they don't revert anything, then Affliction Warlocks are going to be doing like triple the DPS of everybody else in Throne of Thunder. So it seems like, at least based on what he said, it does sound like there's going to be tuning going into every patch, every raid tier. So, you know, I think Shadow, as far as what I'm sure Frost could speak to this better, but I think Shadow scales well, but it never becomes like a super overpowered class. We might just keep this 10, maybe just keep our buffs that we have and just kind of ride them out for the expansion while other classes get a little bit more fine-tuned, because they're potentially going to be like spiking a lot higher or maybe falling off a lot worse as the expansion goes on.
I think the impression is Shadow is good in 15 and kind of means meh in 16. So they might like they probably have to rebalance like a few times. Like maybe 15 they nerf us, maybe 16 they buff us. I don't know.
I don't think we're gonna get nerfed. I think we're gonna stay the same, just because if they fix how RPPM, the trinkets work, like the system, the whole how it procs, how the trinkets proc, I think the game is gonna be it's gonna feel horrible to play, but in terms of game health and game balance, it's gonna be really good for the game, which is why I think if they fix that, they won't be nerfing us. That's my gut feeling. But we're going to have to see.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's something we cannot really know. I'm just happy that the changes went live so that we actually just without having to do anything, like just getting 10% more damage in shadow form was just like, okay, that's just nice.
Yeah, it's just like, it's something that just keeps us, just keeps us competitive. Even on those pure single target fights, we're not dead last. And Shadow will be pretty good. I guess before we go into anything else, can we circle back to refreshing dots before Mind Flay Insanity? Because that's been a pretty common topic in the Discord, so I feel like it'd be good to cover that here.
I should just talk about the rotation, basically, because we haven't.
Yeah. You want to lead us off, Frost? Or Ness, whoever?
Frost can take this one, if you want.
I'm just killing a boss. 1 second.
Hey everyone, Pants here after the fact of recording this. So I wanted to explain the best way to handle dots during your Mind Flay Insanity window, because we learned more after we recorded this. So I'm going to explain that now. Dot uptime is extremely important for Shadow Priest, but a 3-orb Insanity causes your Mind Flay to do double damage. If you overwrite or clip a currently ticking dot, then the primary damage lost is 1 global cooldown worth of Mind Flay. So assuming a dot has the same stats and buffs, then it's best to clip a dot before Insanity and lose a 1 global cooldown of an unbuffed Mind Flay. than it is to reapply during your insanity window and lose 1 GCD of the buffed Mind Flay. Because again, that buffed Mind Flay counts as 2 ticks of a normal Mind Flay. So essentially, recasting early means you lose nothing versus losing 2 Mind Flays when reapplying during Insanity. So the TLDR is that if your dots have about 7 seconds or less on them before you're about to cast Devouring Plague, then recast those dots so that they don't fall off during your Insanity window.
I mean, as far as I remember, it's just like what we said before from our testing. It's just, refresh dots, don't let them drop. Make sure you do it before the third Mind Blast so you can DP instantly start your Insanity spawn.
Yeah, I just found, even in the most optimized sim, I now found a Devouring Plague that dropped, and it was like the Mind Flay Insanity was 0.1 second, like the last tick of the Mind Flay was 0.1 second after the DP hit, and it didn't clip it, so like it didn't override the Insanity, which would have been a gain.
Yep.
So yeah, we can even further optimize the APL to become higher on the single target sim list. That is super important.
Yeah, but I think we knew that, right? Because I
No,
have said I have
we
said like
definitely
weeks
knew it.
ago that I just have no time to keep optimizing it because I had pre-patched to level 2 monks and then I was in Greece and I came back and now I'm like full, like I'm basically dead until like
Yeah,
2 weeks from now,
yeah.
leveling like 15 billion characters. So I can't
Yeah.
really focus on the sim.
No, for sure. And it is also, again, it's the same. So like, yeah, sure, it's great that it can figure out like what the absolute maximum is, but the only thing you should really use a sim for is to just compare gear, and even that in MoP, it's not going to be too difficult anyway. Because essentially a higher item level is pretty much almost always just going to be better. Set bonuses aside.
I mean, I can tell you right now, the only thing we use the sim for, in my opinion, is a regimming intellect or a regimming case. Is crit better than mastery or the other way around?
Finding like abyss, right set, really. Like items, comparing items.
Yeah, but you can honestly even do that without it almost, because you can just take all of the items that are like the highest eye level that the slot can be, and then you look at all of them, and then you're like, okay, now we add up all the stats, like, gem and all, and you compare. Like you can do this with the sheet of paper. I mean,
Yeah. But I mean, it's easier than just pressing a button, right? And tells you, okay, this is better.
yeah. The only issue with that is basically the same. These sims have always run into the issue of, well, now I have 50 more haste, and 50 more haste is -1 cast for some random reason.
Yeah.
And then it shows you something scuffed. So you have to always have that in mind.
And also, like, you can never really play like The Sims play. Like, obviously, because we don't stand still for 5 minutes, like that aside, like, but even if we are standing still, like playing exactly as The Sim is playing is just, that's too robotic. Like, we are humans, and like obviously some of the people in here are slightly less human in terms of how well they play Shadow, but it's, yeah, The Sim is great, but
I agree with you, but for probably the opposite reason of what you are thinking. Because this is not like the retail sim, and it's not like AI or something. I think in general the sim always plays worse than us if we play optimally.
I mean,
Yeah, because again, the sim is only gonna look at like full single target and never moving and no decision making in terms of, okay, like what mechanics are coming in, what is there ads coming in, like is it worth delaying my Mind Blast or my Devouring Plague for X reason, right? Because like I'm nuking ads, so if I use it now I won't be able to, like, like if I go into my Insanity window, like I'm gonna lose out on other kinds of damage. Like it's the sim is just a guideline of how your rotation should be, but it's not something you should blindly follow.
Yeah, I think that's a great summary. There's a lot of learnings from the sim, but it's also not like gospel. I think that there's a lot of just like intuition from playing that you learn, when to take advantage. Like the first boss in Terrace, when you have all those little ads, like how you're going to approach those ads is going to depend on how your raid is going to kill them. Are you going to dot them up? Are you going to try to snipe at Shadow or Death? That approach can't really be simmed. So I think that there's a lot. While on single target, there might be a tried and true formula. Again, very few fights are just pure single target.
Compared to probably other expansions, your dots matter a little less than they used to single target. So you want to prioritize orb usage and orb generation over your dots, which is why we're having this whole discussion of like refreshing dots early and clipping them early, which sounds demonic if you go like with the mindset of previous expansions, right? It's just honestly single target, your dots are weaker than they used to be. So like comparatively. So you do value them less. Like you value Devouring Plague, Mind plus Shadow or Death more than your dots.
Yeah, maybe this like kinda can be linked into the website that I'm going to eventually release. I don't know if the website will be live yet when this video comes out, but on the website, like it's going to be a bit like a frequently asked question sort of deal, with some extras. And in here, I will for sure put in the talent optimization for each boss. And yeah, more data can be found there. Linello did mention this during his short amount of plotting, but he did a lot of plotting at this point. But he's been working a lot with Dragon Cars, who is absolutely amazing. I just always call him Dragon. But yeah, him and those two together have been making the WeakOrs to help us out with when to snapshot and all those things, and that might be useful to know. However, it is looking ahead in the future now, which is insane.
Also remind me to when I have free time to fix the fucking preset on the sim, because I just pinged you. What is this demonic set of gems going on there?
Yes.
It's like full rainbow gemming.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Oh, about gems. So are we just constantly hitting our gem bonus or socket bonus, and then
So basically in MoP, I think basically there's no socket bonus that you skip. There's just no point skipping any of them. So I think you just take all of them even from the beginning. The only question really is, what are you gemming? Like, are you gemming red, orange, purple, or are you gemming orange, yellow, green?
Yep.
That translated, that's, are you gemming for intellect or are you gemming for haste? Can make the argument that maybe you should gem intellect early on, but to be completely honest with you, I think I'm just gonna gem haste all the way through.
Yeah, same. The gameplay, it feels so much better with the haste. It's just, it makes huge sense to just go haste instantly. Even like as soon as MSV progression is over and you start getting gear and bonus rolls and stuff like that, I think you just gem haste as fast as you can. It's just gonna help you with gameplay massively.
It's technically as I alluded before, currently in pre-patch, or haste is kind of insane. So once we hit 90 and are in pre-biz or even in biz, or haste is just not going to be great, which is fine, I guess. But it's going to be so much more fun as soon as you just get more haste. And yeah, as the expansion goes on, and I guess as you get closer to phase 1 biz, just having the haste from the start is just going to feel better, even if it might technically not even be based on whatever data we can figure out.
It's always gonna feel better because your gameplay is just more fun because you're casting faster. That's always gonna be the thing. Whether it's actually better than gemming intellect, I don't know. If you trust guides of old, kinda is, because guys won't usually say something like get 500 eye level and then go haste. 500 eye level, for reference, is heroic MSV gear. But honestly, I think we just go haste even before that.
Yeah, I like on just the the beta, like yeah, we are very slow in the blue gear, which compared to the pre-patch was not as fun.
But also, blue gear to MSV, as Frost just said, is a 40 eye level difference from 463 to 502 from the heroic. So you're going to be getting those stats very quickly.
Yeah. TODR just gem oranges in red, gem flat yellows in yellow, and gem green in blues, and match everything.
I mean, you will feel the difference. Like you will instantly feel the difference of going from blue gear in gems and maybe in haste into just pure haste and 509 or 502 gear. Sorry, 502, no 509. You're gonna feel the difference in your gameplay. Like massively. Like in Kara, you didn't really feel when you was getting stronger, just because the secondaries was not really they just weren't there. But in MoP, you really felt the difference from the get-go.
One thing we also skipped, I think, on accident maybe, is racials and professions. And are we going to be trolls, or are we actually are we going panda?
So I think troll is completely insane, and if you don't go troll, you're trolling, literally. But if you really want to bet on like panda being the best, maybe, and that's a maybe. While we have like blue gear and shit, you can go panda if you want, but it's gonna get outscaled by troll really fast.
I think Panda's a trap for two read. Like, even if you're Alliance, you should probably be Worgen instead of Panda. Panda's a trap for two reasons, at least versus Worgen. And this isn't even, if you're Horde, I feel like you just always go Troll. But for Alliance, one is if you die and you get res mid fight, you lose your racial buff. Like, because your buff comes from your food buff gets doubled, I think. So if you die, you lose your food buff, which means mid fight, you've lost your benefit anyway. And number two is if you're Worgen, you get a mini sprint. It's like a 40% movement speed cooldown on a minute and a half, I believe. And you should just take that. Like, the benefits of going Panda seem so small and almost like as a negative if you die, especially during progression. That's potentially it's more likely to happen, which is when that benefit's going to be the most valuable to your raid team. So I would almost say just like don't go Panda unless you really want to be a Panda and look like one.
If the troll is not a beast, if the boss is not a beast, which happens most of the time in this tier, but not in the next one. Spoiler. In blue gear, maybe panda's better if you don't die, maybe. But I think that doesn't matter. I think you go troll.
Yeah, so if
Yeah,
you're
I
Horde, you're
mean-
playing Troll. I mean, I think you're looking on Troll for the next several expansions. I mean, even in WoD, when everything is going to be dynamic, you're still going to pick Troll for the most part. I wish we could go Goblin, but it's just the Berserking is such a strong buff that it's not going to be a case where, at least if you're playing Horde, you will play anything else but Troll. Unless you don't, I mean, like you don't have to, but if you care about your parsing and progression, you have to lock it in. As far as Alliance goes, I agree with Pants. I think maybe like on a spreadsheet or like on a sim, Panda's gonna seem better. But in a realistic race scenario, I think Worgen is better.
I think it's the same case as troll, but just slower. Like Worgen is gonna outscale, just a bit slower because obviously crit is not haste, but it will for sure outscale. So you might as well just play Worgen.
Yep. 1% crit all the time, plus the movement speed, which you would think you don't need, but it could be handy in some situations. It's, I think you just lock it in. Plus female Worgen is gangster, so.
Hell yeah.
the Draenei dance though, like male Draenei dance.
I wish I
Would
could
really
go
be
Goblin, man. My third priest, I just made Goblin. I couldn't look at another troll.
I was Goblin retail for Legion BFA and Shadowlands. Oh my god, it's so nice. Just rocket jump.
Yeah.
I miss that
Yeah.
so much.
Exactly, man. Rocket jump is goated. At some point, you have like if they do Warden Legion, maybe, but until then,
Yeah, you need to put value on the jump at some point. But I think the game is not advanced enough as to where the jump matters right now.
yeah. I mean, there were a few Shadow Priests that were playing Goblin in original MoP, just because of the amount of secondaries. But in Classic, only if you care about your parsing and pushing numbers, you have to lock in Troll. Otherwise, it's just too much of a big ability not to have. It's literally the only. If you take Shadow Fiend out of the equation, it's the only DPS cooldown we have.
I was also gonna say, technically speaking, I just realized maybe Panda's better than Worgen in tier 14, and then Crit is supposed to outscale, but if you play UVLS, maybe not. In 16, it definitely outscales. So
Yeah, in 16 for sure.
16 for sure, 15 maybe not because of crit value going down, if anything. Because you have 100% crit. And then 14 is probably kind of too early for crit to beat intellect on a 1 to 2 ratio, because that's effectively what it is, right? You're getting 300 intellect from Panda and you're getting 600 crit from Worgen.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't know. I mean, you're probably not losing much if you play Panda on Alliance, but you are getting you are gonna lose in 16 though if you take that route to Worgen.
I just simmed it. It's a 0.1% difference in tier 14 BIS, favoring Panda by 150 DPS. So like,
kind of sounds accurate, to be honest. Kind of.
Yeah.
I ran The Sims, but like that were super early, like just swapping the ratios, which is always funny. You have to make sure that you reforge though, because sometimes the reforging actually like happens, depending on which race you pick. And also, like just to quickly throw this into it, it's pretty much always engineering plus tailoring for BIS professions.
I think you don't even consider the other options if you're
Yeah,
if you're
but-
being like if you're serious about actually doing damage. You really shouldn't use the others. If you're more of a casual player, do whatever you want. But like if you want to be optimal, you have to play engineering tailoring. This is the expansion of stack all the procs on top of each other, so you have no choice not playing proc professions.
I mean,
Yep.
herbalism, come on, that's an extra haste. So you stack that on top of the other things. Hey,
No.
I think the only way you can use that is UVLS.
Yeah,
Like maybe it gives enough value as to consider it over tailoring. Maybe.
I doubt it, but like it's just it's actually funny because I didn't even realize that herbalism had a haste buff until like someone pointed it out to me, and I was just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it's irrelevant in Kata because it's too little, but here it's actually
Yeah.
a decent amount. Herbalism is not bad.
Yeah, but then also you have to pick flowers to level it. There's no way to level herbalism without picking flowers.
It's also one of the rare professions where you actually need 600, not 550.
Yeah, so yeah, just pick tailoring so you can level it from the auction house.
I guess you can mention the opener, but the opener is also pinned by me.
Yeah.
People probably know it.
I'll put it up on the screen here. I don't think it's anything we need to go into great detail on.
It doesn't matter what talent you pick; it's the same opener, by the way. Actually, if you don't play Halo, you're not precasting Cascade. Cascade you can't precast because it puts you in combat.
No, it puts you in combat only if it hits.
Oh, is it on the hit? Okay, then you can.
Yeah, it travels faster though, so you have to stand further away. One, for it to do its maximum damage, and two, not to put you in combat.
Okay, nice then. But yeah, Cascade does max damage at 30, but you can also cast it from 40, so you might as well cast it at 40.
Yeah, the graphs for the Cascade is like kind of funny.
Yeah, Cascade is easy. Halo is the hard graph, the giga math. Thank you, Ghost Scroller.
Oh man.
Yeah. Halo honestly is the most frustrating talent to play with.
Which is a crime because that is the best fucking visual they've ever made in this game.
It's
I,
so
I,
cool.
I love that spell.
It looks amazing, and it's just so much fun to just press it as well. Like anytime
It's
you
a-
press it, besides pulling like shit behind the walls and shit, besides that, like it's so much fun visually and just seeing the numbers.
All right, with that, I think we're good to go. Close it out. Ross, go have fun.
Yeah,
Make
could
sure
have
you get number one, like else I'm going to be upset of you leaving now.
Well, unfortunately, I'm not playing Shadow in this one, but
Have fun with that, and thanks a lot for joining. If there's any last like closing things that we want to do, Pants, like where people can find maybe. Do you stream even, Frost? I don't think you do.
my guild would kill me if I stream.
No, of course not right now. But like, do you stream at all? Like when you're allowed to stream?
I do stream, but I don't stream WoW because I use my channel for another game.
Sure.
So no, I don't stream WoW specifically.
I'll put a
Sure.
link to Nezcals stream. Because you're streaming. Oh, I guess this is going to come out after MSV Prague.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, I'll still put a link to your stream.
Yeah, I'm gonna be streaming a lot of MoP. I didn't have the ability before that about the internet, but I'm gonna be streaming everything. So yeah, if anyone wants to come by and say hi, you're welcome to.
I'm gonna say Nezcals is a god gamer too. So
Yeah.
all
you
those
should
rank
probably, like-
ones, those are him.
I'm okay. I'm okay.
All right. Well, I think unless anyone has anything else to add, I think we're good to close this one out.
No, I just want to thank all of you for joining this because I felt like it. We didn't do anyone for Cataclysm, so I felt like one for MoP where we're actually like having fun playing the game. Felt amazing to do. So thanks a lot for helping me out with all of this as well before we did this whole thing. And shout out to Mackie from Progress who helped me make the visuals that are like on the screen right now. And yeah, if you have any questions later on, the Discord is probably the easiest place to get most of the answers. And the website that I'm going to put up eventually will also hopefully have enough answers. And I will try to keep that as up to date as possible for that. And of course, like make sure that you like and subscribe and share to Pens Gaming.
Yeah. Cool. All right, everyone. Have a good day. Go enjoy MoP launch. So that's what we're all about to do in 3.5 hours.
Yay, Monkey Farm! Woohoo!
Yeah,
Are you guys
right.
gonna know live? We're going
Yep.
like, yeah, we're doing like 3 characters. So we're
God.
trying to go for Realm First class achievements, then into Realm First challenge modes, into second and third alt. I don't even know.
I have to level way too many characters for challenge modes and shit.
Oh man.
The fucking struggles of playing 2 guilds. I should really stop doing that to myself.
Yeah.
I'm currently also like I mean I don't run in a actually I do run in a guild, but in the guild that I was running in, I wasn't even playing Shadow. But I'm swapping to Shadow in MoP. However, my Shadow Priest, which is also an Alliance character, is sadly not even 85 yet. So I need to get working on that. But my main Shadow Priest is going to run GDKPs for now until I find a guild. If I'm looking for a guild, I don't know yet.
I need to make an alliance one just for PvP, man. That human is too strong. It is, man.
Yeah.
A Shadow in MoP PvP is so much fun.
No, I play a paladin, and my paladin is also human. And even in like Dragon Soul and some fights, like you can actually make use of the ratio, which is kind of funny.
All right,
Hopefully
boys.
it all goes well.
Yeah.
All right. Have fun leveling. Good
Have
luck.
fun, boys.
Good luck, Realm First, Nez.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Let's hope
good
we get
luck.
it. All right, boys. I'll talk to you later. Bye.
All right. See ya.
Bye bye.